Hi everyone, welcome to Homework Help. Let's get started. Number 1. At the baseball game, 40% of the fans joined in singing the national anthem while the rest listened quietly. So we had 25,000 total fans. How many joined in the singing? Well, we have that 40% joined in the singing. But if we want to find the percentage of something, we can either turn the percent to a fraction and then simplify that way by multiplying. Our other option is to turn the percentage into a decimal. So instead of 40%, we have 40.0, twice to the left. So then you could have 25,000 times 0.4. We could actually get rid of that last 4 at the end because that's not going to make a difference in the value. Number 2. A gallon of milk contains 128 ounces. How many 8-ounce cups can we fill? So we want to split the 128 up into a whole bunch of different cups, right? So we're going to take away 8 each time. So a faster way of doing that would just be to divide, either using long division or a fraction to simplify. Number 3, Jackie played the drums in the band. If he beat the drum at a rate of 110 beats per minute, so every minute it's 110, how many beats would he play in 4.5 minutes? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then half a minute. So each of those is going to be 110, and then for the half a minute you have half of 110. So you could combine, and then simplify this and combine it with the rest. Alternatively, you could turn 4.5 into an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so that's 9 over 2 times 110 over 1. Or you could also turn it into a decimal and then multiply 110 times 4.5. All of those are options for finding out the amount of beats per 4.5 minutes. Number 4. Simplify 4 inches cubed. Take it to the third power. So we're going to distribute here. So it's going to be 4 to the power 3 and inches cubed. So the inches takes care of itself. But then for the 4, we have 3 4s. So it's 1, 2, 3. And that's what you're going to have to simplify. For number 5, we have the cube root of 1. Since it's a cube root, you want 3 factors inside the root. So what are 3 numbers that you multiply to get 1? Well, 1 times 1 times 1. And so since you have 3 ones there, you just take one of those out to get your cube root. Number 6, you have the square root of 8 squared. If we expand, simplify inside the root, we have 8 times 8, which gives us 64. So you can find the square root of 64. You could also see that because it's a square root, you just need one of the 2 partners to take one out. All right. Number 7, express this with exponents 2x, x, x, m, r, r. So I'll give you an example. Let's say 3y, y, z, z. So the constant stays the same, still 3. These all have an invisible one of exponent, so you would combine them by adding the exponent. So that's y squared and then z squared. So again, what you're doing is you're counting how many of the variable you have. And then that's going to be the exponent for that variable. So the constant, the 2 remains the same. You're going to have x to some power. How many of those are there? M to some power. Again, how many are there? And then r to some power. How many of r's are there? And that's how you would simplify it. Number 8. Solve by inspection. We see that we are dividing by 4. So we want to use the inverse operation. The opposite of division is multiplication. We're going to multiply by the 4 because that's going to be what cancels it out here. So we can simplify. All right. Number 9. 2x plus 5 equals 5. So reverse order of operations. We see that we are adding an amount. So we want to get rid of that using the opposite, which is subtracting. That's going to leave us with 2x equals the difference of 5 and 5. And then since the 2 and the x are being multiplied, you're going to go ahead and divide by that factor constant. Number 10. We have 9 minus m equals 7, as we went over, these can just rotate spaces. That is one way to do it, so that you can solve for m. Remember to plug the value for m back into the original equation to see if your answer is correct. 11. 4/5 minus 1/2. Well, we can't do that, so we need a common factor. So we'll start with the biggest number, 5. 2 doesn't go into 5. 10. 2 does go into 10. So we need to turn both fractions into fractions with a denominator of 10. Once you have done that, rewrite your fractions, and then simplify by subtracting, and then simplifying from there if possible. Number 12, 1 1/4 plus 1 1/3. Again, we do not have a common denominator, so we need to find one. 3 and 4. I'll start with the bigger number, which is 4. 3 doesn't go into 4. 3 doesn't go into 8. 3 does go into 12. So we need to turn both fractions into fractions out of 12. Once you have that, you're going to add them. Remember that we're going to multiply to get our common factor, or our common denominator rather. 13. Compare and justify your answer with the property of addition. So we have 1/3 plus 1/2 plus 2/3. On the other side of that, we have 1/3 plus 2/3 plus 1/2. So you notice that everything inside the groups is the same amount, but what changes is the order. Well, here it's 1/2 and 2/3. Here it's 2/3 and 1/2. But everything else is the same. So we're going to compare greater than, less than, or equal to, and then which property is it that is used when we are changing the order of our addends. So which property deals with changing the order? Okay, number 14. Arrange in order from least to greatest. 0, -2, 1/3, 0.3, 3, -1.5. Again, 0 goes right in the middle. All the negatives go on the left. So we have -2, -1.5. You have to determine that order. Keep in mind that the closer it is to 0, the greater value it has. Now on the other side, we have 1/3, which we're going to change to 10 out of 30. Then we have 3/10. You're also going to need to make that out of 30. So we're going to multiply by 3. You do that so that we can compare these fractions, 1/3 and the 3/10. And then 3 being a whole number is going to clear both of those easily. So that's going to be your greatest value there. So just keep in mind to change that 0.3 into a 3/10. Then change it to a fraction out of 30. And then you can compare it with the 10/30ths. 15. Find 4AC when A is 1 and C is 9. So we're going to substitute, but we need to keep in mind that these are being multiplied. So it's 4 times the value of A, which is 1, times the value of C, which is 9. And as you multiply these, make sure that you simplify them. 16. What is the difference between the sum of 10 and 1/2? So the sum, I'm going to add those up, and the product of 1/2 and 10. So here we're taking half of 10. Here we're going to add these up. Then we're going to subtract them. Now, the neat thing here is that we can actually just, 5 doesn't technically have a fraction with it, so we can make one that's a denominator of 2, but then the numerator has to be 0. Why? Because 0 divided by 2 gives you 0. 5 plus 0 is going to be 0, so it's still 5. We do this so that you can subtract the whole numbers and subtract the fractions there. 17. For y equals 1/3 x plus 2, find y when x equals 6. So again, we're going to substitute y equals 1/3, but we're going to multiply it by 6 over 1, and then we're going to add 2. So first thing you need to take care of is this right here. Take 1/3 of 6. Once you have that amount, you're going to add 2 to it to get your value for y. 18. How much money is 20% of $65? So again, just like we did earlier, we could just turn the percentage into a fraction and multiply that way. We could also turn it into a decimal by moving the decimal twice to the left, and then we can multiply it that way. Those are all different options that you have for finding a percentage of a number. It could be a whole number, decimal number, fraction, but that's how you find the percent. It's either turn the percent to a fraction and then multiply, or turn it into a decimal and multiply. Arrange these fractions in order from least to greatest. 3/8, 2/5, 1/4. So I'm actually going to start with the 8 being the biggest one, so we can find the common factor, common denominator, because they're all different denominators. So 8, 5 doesn't go into 8, 5 doesn't go into 16. I'm doing 5 because 5 is the biggest one. We can worry about the 4 afterwards. 5 doesn't go into 24, 5 doesn't go into 32, 5 does go into 40. So 40 is promising, so then we check 4. Does 4 go into 40? Yes. So our common denominator is 40. That means that 3/8 needs to be a fraction out of 40. 2/5 needs to be a fraction out of 40. 1/4 needs to be a fraction out of 40. And we're going to get there by multiplying by the amount that we need. Like in this case, we're going to multiply by 5. So what do we multiply 5 times to get 8? Do the same thing to 2. What do we multiply times 4 to get 40? Do the same thing to the 1, and then you can compare them least to greatest. 20. Prime factorization of 630 using exponents. So I'll give you an example with 9. 3 and 3. How do you write that with exponents? 3 squared, because there's 2 3's. So as you're breaking up this number, keep in mind that if you have any numbers that repeat, you're going to just leave them be, and you're going to write it with the multiplication sign. Any numbers that repeat, however many of those numbers there are, that's going to be your exponent. 21. A formula for the area of a square is area equals s squared. S squared. Find a when s equals 15. So a equals, so instead of s, we're going to substitute it with 15 squared. We can expand that. So it's going to be 15 times 15 to find the area. All right, 22. If the subtrahend is 12 and the difference is 12, so subtrahend is that second number that's being taken away from the minuend. The difference is 12. We want to find the value of the minuend. We have a one-step equation here. We're going to use the opposite of subtracting, which is addition, to solve for that. 23. If each side of a square is 7.5, we want to find the perimeter. So we could do this a few ways. We could do 7.5 times 4, or we could add 7.5 4 times. All right, 24. Compare 0.625 to 3/5. The best way to do this would be to make them both decimals. So 5 would have to go into 3.0. We see that's 0.6. Now, since 0.6 only goes to the tenths and 0.625 goes to the thousandths, we want to add zeros here until they're in the same place value, because now you can compare them using greater than, less than, or equal to. So we have 25. Median number of bears in the zoo if the zoo contains 11, 3, 2, 5, and 18. So let's move the 11, and 18. So median is going to be that number that's in the middle. We get there by eliminating numbers on the ends until you get to the exact number in the middle to find your median. In order to get to a median, though, you have to put them in order first from least to greatest, and then start cutting numbers off of the ends. 26. Write 7/100ths as a fraction. Well, it's all in the name there, right? 7/100ths. So the hundredths, those are your 2 zeros, and then the numerator is your 7. Then name both numbers. So again, 7 being that. So like if it was 0.3, it would be 3/10. You write the number 3 and then the place value tenths. Same thing here. Number, then place value. 27. Why is this false? Every whole number is positive. Well, there is one example of a whole number that's not positive, and that's because it's not positive or negative. That's going to be 0. 0 is a whole number, but it is not positive or negative. So because of that, it is not a true statement. Find the perimeter for 28. We're going to have this little figure right here, 4, 10, 5. Now we see here that this section plus this little part gives us the 5. So that has to make it 1. Now, this part is probably the one that's might be a little confusing. But think about it. This is 10. So we know that this and this combined together makes 10. So it doesn't really matter that we don't know how long this side is or that side is because we're not looking for the area here. What matters is that we know that combined it makes 10. So basically you have two 10s. Then you have a 5, a 4, and then that little 1 right there at the end. All right, 29. So for this triangle, it provides us with all three sides, 3 inches, 5 inches, 7 inches. To find the perimeter, we just have to add those up. I will say this. Can you make a 10 here? That's what I would recommend first. So I wouldn't do 3 plus 5 because that makes 8. Is there another combination of these numbers? Because it's all being added, so the commuter property means we can move them around however we want. It's still going to be the same value. So we can make a 10, which will make it easier for us to add. Finally, number 30. 15 square foot room is going to be carpeted. Use the formula area equals side squared to find the number of square feet that is needed. So if one of the sides is 15, so we're just going to substitute to make this 15 squared, and that's going to give us 15 times 15, which we can then simplify. Your extra credit for today is 10-4, which was the score of the Cubs against the Dodgers last night. So great job, Cubbies. Write this at the top of your homework. This has been your homework helpful today. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you later.